Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey now, today we're going to take a look at the Machi Koro Deluxe Edition from IDW Games. Now, Machi Koro came out less than a year ago and took the world by storm, and in that intervening less than a year of time, you've had two expansions for it, the Harbor expansion and the Millionaire's Row expansion, which just came out maybe about a week before this was released. So at this point, you're probably saying to yourself, there's a deluxe edition of a game that came out less than a year ago that just had expansions out like less than a half of a year ago, and within a week of this one coming out. That's a bit odd. Well, it is. I'll talk more about that in my final thoughts, but let me go ahead and show you what's in this deluxe edition. Alright, let me show you what's in the Machi Koro Deluxe Edition. So I guess this is kind of like an unboxing and review, since I'm technically just unboxing it. But so it comes in a tin, which is pretty nice. It's got a cool, sort of 3D embossed thing here of the village, and everything on the back looks very, very nice. So okay, I'm not a big, I'm okay with tins. I'm not like a huge detractor of them. It comes with a rule book which has all the rules for all three expansions. So this has the base game, as I mentioned in my intro. It has the base game, both expansions, and some extra stuff, and you can find all the information in here. You have a pouch now instead of I'm not even sure it came with anything to begin with, but I was using a plastic baggie. But a pouch to have all the tokens, and the tokens are still just cardboard, but they're slightly nicer tokens, or they at least look a little bit different. These are actually from the expansion, Millionaire's Row, which I have a separate review for, but if you're not familiar with what those are. But going back to the rest of the stuff in here, you see that there are still only 2 dice. And I'll talk more about that in my final thoughts. And they have a little special symbol on them, but really, still only 2 dice. Makes total sense. Any case, then you have the 3 sets. So you have the main set of the game of the base cards of Machi Koro, the Harbor expansion, and the Millionaire's Row expansion. And I will go ahead and point out now that while there were some problems with the original versions of the base game and the expansion, in that the card size wasn't matching up, like the base game was just slightly off as far as the card size compared to the expansions. These are all the same, but the cards have like sort of a weird bends to them that, so they're all going in the same direction here, but that's the expansion compared to the original, and they're still a tiny bit, maybe slightly off. It's not too bad though, but there is that. And then you might be wondering what this other little stack of cards here are. These are special promo cards, kind of, sort of. So the Convention Center is a reincarnation of the Gaming Megastore, which was a promo for the original base set, but now the Convention Center is just, which I also think was given out as a promo with Millionaire's Row, if I'm not mistaken. It's the same ability as the Gaming Megastore. Purple, it's a purple building, which means you can only have one of them. When you roll a 10 on your turn, you can choose to activate another one of your non-purple locations immediately, and then return this back to the market. And then the other promo card is the Diamine, which is a little promo for their other game, Diamonsters. And you see, I guess they're supposed to be little tiny monsters or a home there. But what this really is just the mine. This is a redo of the actual mine card from the base game, where if anyone rolls a 9, you get 5 coins from the bank. That's it. It's not any more special than that, and you have multiple copies of it. So, believe it or not, that is the quote-unquote deluxe edition of Machi Koro. That's what you get. That's it. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Let me just say this first. If you've never watched my review of Machi Koro and its 2 expansions, then go ahead and do that, because I do want people to know that I like Machi Koro as a game. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever. I think as a base game, it's just like okay. Decent. A good gateway game, but not really for gamerly gamers. When you add in at least one of the expansions, preferably the Harbor expansion, it's actually a really solid game, a game that I enjoy quite a bit. So I like Machi Koro, and I like the idea of there being a set with all the cards together. But this set is problematic. First and foremost, this is not Deluxe. I think the word Deluxe is getting thrown around a bit too liberally lately, because this is basically a pretty nice edition of the game. If this game had come out of the blue and they released just the base game like this, in the tin, with the dice in the pouch and all that, I would say, wow, that's a nice game. But I wouldn't think that much of it. So to release it as a deluxe edition is really silly. And, I mean, the tin is fine, okay. But then on the inside, there's, like, nothing that special about it. You get a dice pouch. Woo! It's not really a dice pouch. It's for the coins, which is okay, I guess. And then, of course, there are 2 dice. Well, there was 2 dice in the first game, and that was a problem because even though it's a bit nitpicky, everything in this review is going to sound nitpicky, but I'm reviewing the deluxe edition to know where I'm coming from with this, compared to the original. But in the original set, there was 2 dice, despite the fact that the game could go to 4 players, and despite the fact that the game, one of the landmarks in the game that you need to win lets you roll 2 dice. So really, there should be 8 dice in the game, and then when you have the expansion, the Harbor expansion that adds a 5th player, 2 more dice, just to make things convenient. And you would think in a deluxe edition of the game that they would include more dice. But no. All they did was add an extra side. Instead of the 6, I think, there's a little picture of the mountain from the box of Machi Koro. That's it. So that's ridiculous in and of itself. The insert is no different. There's nothing else. Okay, I'm sorry. They made the coins look slightly nicer. I don't mean like they're wooden or they're metal. I mean they're just like kind of a nicer design. Very, very strange. So, nothing about this set is deluxe, and that's just aggravating. So, what about the game content? Well, okay, it's got the base game and the 2 expansions, and as I mentioned in my intro, or alluded to, it is ridiculous that this game has been out, at least in the North American version, widely distributed, for less than a year. Like 10 months, this game has been available on the North American market, and we're already getting a deluxe edition. And in that intervening time, in just a couple of weeks before this set came out, the second expansion came out, and now they're expecting people to buy the deluxe edition. That's really silly. Like, I mean, you could just buy the deluxe edition now for less money than it cost everyone to buy the base set and the 2 expansions together, which in and of themselves were overpriced because they were in boxes that were too big for the actual content that was in them. But you might still say, okay, Nick, well, if I could get a slightly 2% nicer edition of the game, and maybe it has some extra content, wouldn't that be worth it? Well, here's your extra content. There's 2 new cards, I'm going to keep doing this, in this set. One of them, and they're both just reprints, okay? One of them is the Convention Center, which was a promo in the original set that I think almost everyone has at this point because they were just handing them out, which was the Gaming Megastore. And that's all it is. It does the exact same thing. One of the purple establishments that lets you mimic another building's ability, and then you put it back in the stock. Even the artwork is the same. They kept the artwork the same. I don't even know why. And then there's the Diamine, which is supposed to be an homage to their other really bad card game, Monsters, with alternate artwork. It's like an alternate artwork version of the mine from the base game. Barely. It's the same mountain with tiny little, you have to squint, I guess, monsters on the mine, and it does the exact same thing. It is just an alternate artwork version of the card, barely. Why not have some new stuff in here? Have some new cards. Have some things that do stuff. I understand that people would be upset about that too because, like, oh, you're making me buy Deluxe Edition just for some new cards. I get that, but as it is now, there's almost no reason to buy this game if you've already got the other sets. Now, if you don't have Machi Koro at all, you watch reviews of it and you think that it's a game for you, and again, it is a good game. And if you decide that you want it, okay, go for the Deluxe Edition. You might as well. The price point is actually surprisingly low, and you'll spend much less money getting just this as opposed to the base game and the separate 2 expansions. Not to mention the fact that the IDW was always plagued with production problems, and the cards for the 3 sets were actually different sizes originally. Now at least they're all the same size, although they're, as I showed in the video, there's some weird bendiness to them, but okay, whatever. So, yeah, go for this set if you're not into Machi Koro at all. Even if you've only got the base Machi Koro set, it probably is still cheaper for you to get the Deluxe Edition to get the 2 expansions. But if you've already got the expansions, or if you've got one of the expansions and you're like, I can do without the other one, don't even bother with this set. I don't know. I'm just kind of annoyed that they're wasting the concept of a Deluxe Edition on this when there's so many other things they could have done, especially since IDW, I believe, has Kickstarted games in the past. Meaning they could have made a really nice set of this. They could have had like wooden coins. They could have had like tons of custom dice. All kinds of neat stuff they could have done with this set, and they just wasted it in a money grab. That's all this is a shameless money grab. I guess it's working for them. All of these Machi Koro games have been selling very, very well, but I'll tell you this. I mean, I seem upset. I'm not like that upset about it. You know, I'm not going to go cry about it. I don't really care. But there are a lot of people that are much more upset about this than I am, and when you alienate fans like that with these sort of substandard products, it's going to eventually come back to bite you when people lose faith in the products that you're selling. That's all that I'm going to say about that. So, Machi Koro, good game. This is just a poor implementation of it, unless you have already purchased no other Machi Koro stuff. That's the only way that I would recommend picking this one up. Sorry to say it.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.